Now let's look at the dual table. The first thing I've done is I've actually looked up dual inside the Oracle manual, and I'm going to click this link here. Very good idea to actually read through this. I don't like that popping up there, and it's lost it. So let's go and look up the dual table again down here. As you can see, dual allows you to select from nothing. Essentially, it's a small table in the data dictionary that blah 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 written programs, basically because Oracle is declarative. It requires an expression in order to execute against the database using structured query language, and it needs to extract information from an object, in this case a dummy table. That's what it's for in Oracle, because there are lots of things that you can actually get from an Oracle database that don't involve a table, and we will look at those gradually. For instance, there are things called pseudocolumns, like the dual table being a dummy table. Pseudocolumn means make-believe or substitute column. In other words, it's a column that doesn't actually exist in a table, but it exists within the configuration of Oracle. For instance, the SYSDATE. The Oracle database contains an internal system date, which tells you what the date is in the Oracle database. So obviously when you run this, it doesn't look at a table, it goes and looks at the SYSDATE variable within the context of a session, and obviously you can do things like this and reinterpret this date as day, month, year, and then bring out the hours and the minutes and whatever else you want to do with it. Hit return again. Obviously we get more detail. There are a bunch of things called pseudocolumns. Another one is user, where you can figure out who you're connected as. In this case, I'm connected as shows. If I go into system and I type select user from dual, it will tell me that I am connected as the system user. If I go back to SQL Plus, I can describe the dual table, and it shows me that it has a column called dummy with a single byte character field. Select star from dual gives me, as you've already seen, a value of X, which is a default value. So it's pretty basic. Selecting everything from dual gives me that. And pseudocolumns, make-believe pretend columns. Row number assigns a row in sequence to the data as it's pulled from the database. There are 54 rows in the table. They happen to coincide with the ID numbers. And as you can see, you've actually, in SQL Developer, you've got a row number column in there anyway. If we go into here, we should only get 2 columns, not 3. So, going back to the master book list, where do I find pseudocolumns? I would have thought they were actually in the reference guide, but thinking about it, they're probably not. SQL Language Reference, BSEU, there we go. In the SQL Language Reference Guide, there's a chapter called pseudocolumns. There are all sorts of pseudocolumns, lots of them. Hierarchical, sequence, version, column value, object ID, blah, 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 a lot of them. The only ones we're really interested in at the moment are the row ID, the row number. The other ones, not really, because hierarchical is to do with hierarchical queries, which is in the next course. Sequences are what I like to call exotic objects, again the next course. Version queries are for version queries where you're getting different versions of data pulled from the database. So the only thing we're actually really interested in terms of pseudocolumns at this point are things like the row number. SYSDATE is actually a single row function. It returns a value. It's not a pseudo column, it's not a make-believe column. It's actually a function that goes into the database, reads the context in a session, and pulls out the date. The same applies to a sys timestamp and various other things that you can use to access static configuration in the database, which you find right here. SysDate, sys timestamp are not pseudo columns. Row number is a pseudo column.